Yeah,
That's
the car
good.
kept
And
us
you
safe.
didn't get hurt.
Yeah, exactly. You always.
So what's the fastest you've been?
So on that run, it was 421, 299 miles an hour.
299.
And a car I built in my garage.
Yeah, how about that? So one day, and you'll go through a 44-gallon drum.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. How many passes?
2.
2 passes.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
my God.
if you imagine that's an idle, you'll
That's what I
use-
told you when I was sponsoring. I was buying Nitro.
you were
I
buying-
watched my money burn.
Yes, exactly.
You watched your money
In
turn into
in
flames.
copious amounts.
Mounts. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it'd be like me just taking a bucket of money
And
and,
just-
pouring it into a pile of fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Look
done.
at that.
NHRA
It's a fire hose.
Yes.
Sure. Oh,
8 gallons at idle.
Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you some stories.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Car Guy Confessions with Jeff Smith. This is my friend Steve Strope.
I'm
We have a
not Jeff
special
Smith.
guest star. You're not special?
No, I'm not Jeff Smith. You are Jeff. Again, it's free.
We're off to a good start. And we have a special, we have a drag racing theme tonight.
It's a theme?
Yeah, a theme, yes. And we're going to carry that theme throughout the entire episode here. So buckle up. Alex here. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your last name, so you can do that for me.
Alex Miladinovich,
Okay.
driver of
And-
the Hot for Teacher Nitro funny car.
There you go, right?
So Alex M.
And this is going to be a good story.
Yeah, because I like funny cars.
You like funny cars. You sponsored funny cars.
I seem to enjoy them.
Immensely.
It's the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
Yeah. So you drive the car?
Yes, sir. I drive and own it. And
So I worked for CarCraft for all these years and stuff. Cam and I, with magazines and everything else, and I've driven lots of door slammers and everything else. I've never come close to a nitro car. The closest I ever came to it was an alcohol funny car, Don Gay Jr.'s car. Mm-hmm. And they said, I did a feature with them and the family and everything. And he said, you want to sit in the car? I said, yeah. And they closed the bio and went, I don't like this.
it gets very tight.
Oh, man, because it's like tunnel vision. I can't imagine going that fast. So where do we start? Let's start with the fact that this is a completely friend-funded, locally funded, no major sponsors. Ooh. Okay.
I wish to start.
Interject?
I wish to go a little earlier than that.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Because it's fun to find out how everybody started their addictions.
Okay. Yeah.
So
let's do that.
What was the gateway drug
the gateway drug, yep.
to lead? So our end heroine here is a funny car.
Yep.
Me,
Nice choice of words.
I know. That's a family-friendly
double
show.
entendre there.
That's right. So me starting was, Hot Wheels Matchbox turned into BMX, which is where I learned to work with wrenches and then also pick my own colors and styles of parts. Then evolving into like motocross and then cars.
Yep.
So boom, 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 boom. So what was your gateway drug? How did that start?
It started with that one trip to the Pomona Drags in 1992.
Very
My
cool.
brother went. We went to the Winter Nationals, and I saw the Oldsmobile John Force with flames.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
he
Well,
did-
that was the Hot Rod sponsored car.
Yep.
Was it? Okay.
He did the burnout, and I always loved doing
He did
burnouts.
the burnout.
as a kid.
It's
John-
referred
the
to
John
as
Force
the
burnout.
Exactly.
Yeah, which
My
went
dad-
on forever,
My
right?
dad was an auto shop teacher at the Orange
excellent,
County.
cool.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
so, interesting story. He went to school with Gary Dencham. Yeah. to
Oh,
Cal State Long
so
Beach.
these tentacles go way
Yeah.
deep.
See,
way deep.
I told you.
It gets
Yeah.
We'll find out where this
Yeah.
came from.
So
So we should talk just for a second. Explain who Gary Dencham
Gary
is.
Dencham has been racing since the beginning of drag racing, and he owns the Teacher's Pet.
Teacher's Pet.
And his son has now taken on the reins. However, Gary still drives, and he's a phenomenal
Excellent.
racer, and I'm lucky enough to call him my friend. So
And he's probably
cool.
in his 70s.
He's almost 80.
Almost 80.
Yeah, and he's still
driving.
running strong, and he's
Ounce.
ornery.
Yeah.
And
he's
really-
my hero.
yeah,
he's my hero.
Gary Dencham's awesome.
I aspire to being vertical in 80.
Yeah.
I just came from, I did my annual pilgrimage when I come out here to the undisclosed location. I always go to my pilgrimage at Kenny Duttweiler's shop and sit and talk with him for an hour or so. But anyway, so that's great because he's 80 also. He's 82. So, yeah.
He's running on 8 cylinders. So.
Outstanding.
So
Outstanding.
my first trip to the drags, I fell in love with drag racing. And I'm like, I have to do this. Well, in the 90s, they weren't going to hand a 17-year-old kid a Nitro funny car to drive. It wasn't like the 60s. So
Yeah.
I toyed around and started with the Camaro. And then someone had a front-engine dragster for sale. It was a 1968 Woody Gilmore car.
Okay.
cool.
I saved
Okay.
all my
Gilmore
money,
chassis,
and I didn't race it in Super Comp. I raced it in the Nostalgia
Good Guys?
Yes, in the Good Guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was local Bakersfield, Palmdale, and it was easy for a guy to do
The off-road
on a low
courses.
budget. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
The off-road drag tracks.
So then, about that time, Nostalgia Funny Car came along. It came along.
Mm-hmm.
The whole nostalgia scene kind of had this rebirth where guys like Ty Norton and the Red Turkey, they never stopped racing front engine top fuel cars.
Okay.
Root Beer, Frank Hedge, Funny Cars came along, and I'm like, well, I got to build one.
Okay.
And at that time, Steve Pluger, through a local friend who was the local chassis builder and built a lot of chassis for Force, was a friend of a friend. He says, hey, they need help to build a car, and we don't know who's going to drive it yet, but you want to help out? And I was 20 years old. I'm like, yes, I do want to help.
So you got your foot. That's how you got your foot in
I
the door.
got to work in La Mirada, the Burning German on Leffingwell Boulevard.
Popa Chromoly.
Yep,
See,
exactly.
I met him. I moved to California in 95, worked at a place called Daigle's Rod and Truck down in Orange. And right up the street is a gentleman named Frank Aldana, who you should probably know the name of Frank Aldana.
Yeah, Frank's part of this story.
Yes,
Oh,
he is.
good.
Frank, it's 5 degrees of
separation,
separation.
yeah.
No, it
with
sounds
Frank
more like
Aldana. I did a radio program a long time ago for Carcraft
The
magazine,
Carcraft radio thing that we
and
did.
we brought Frank up, and he was so good we kept him 2 hours.
We just kept going because
unbelievable.
the
and
stories
if you
just
know,
kept.
obviously
He
you know
won't
Frank.
stop. I'm surprised you only had him for that long.
No,
And Frank will know
he's-
this.
He's really humble. The funny thing is he's so outspoken, but he's very, very humble. You have
Yes.
to drag it out of him, and then once you get it going, once you kickstart him,
Yeah, exactly.
he's up and rolling and just an
Then it goes
amazing
to wide
guy.
open throttle. Yeah,
Well, it's interesting because I've never met you before,
Yep.
and just listening to the paths just passing by, he came up to me at the Grand National Roadster Show at a booth, and he goes, "Hey, I'm working on clutching for this
So
for this
how
car.
you doing, bud? And
yeah.
Frank Aldana.
So, hey, I'm going to be doing this thing at Bakersfield with this funny car, and you should make it up. You should come up. You should." So I went up, and I watched he said Pluger Geiger. So I'm like, okay. So I watched him do their burnout stuff, and I went back into pits, went to go find him. And I came up to the pits, and Garrett Bateman was driving, and he was half in the suit, just did a run. And I'm looking around, there's a little rope, roping off the car. And he goes, "Hey, you're Steve Strope." And I'm like, back then I'm like,
Do I owe you money?
Yeah, I know. Dude, I'm not, I don't know if I want to quantify that or qualify it.
One of these.
And we got talking. He goes, "Oh, I've got a Charger, and I love your stuff." And we got talking, and this you'll know instantly because you know Frank. So Frank, he goes, "What are you doing up here?" And I go, "Oh, Frank Aldana. I knew him because I worked in Orange and blah 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 blah." And he goes, "Oh, cool." So he goes, "Just come over the room. Come over and hang out." So me and him are talking. I'm making sure I get everything right. So Frank hasn't shown up yet, and me and Bateman are just hitting it off and hanging out. So Frank walks up and he goes, "Oh, you two met." He goes, "Oh, good."
Just great.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Alex.
So he'll sometime you get him and ask him about me. And so I went up to Vegas to watch them run. They were doing a 2-car thing with
Leah Pruitt.
Bucky Austin. No,
Bucky Austin at
it was
that
with
time, yeah.
Garrett still
okay.
driving and Bucky. And I remember Forrest coming down on his scooter, no entourage, going, Ploogie, we're going to run the hot rod. I sure miss these cars, and that whole thing. So I wanted to help out. So, and I'm wearing a white shirt, white T-shirt, and like nice shorts. And so Frank's like, "All right, take all that tin, all the aluminum tin work." He goes, clean it all, and blah, 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 and blah, blah.
And
So-
don't mess it up.
and so, but I'm a detail hound. I build show cars, right? So I clean everything and have them laid out left and right side of the car in order down the car. And he comes back, he goes, "Ugh." He goes, "How was your shirt not dirty?"
Yeah.
And I go, I don't know. I was careful. He
I
goes,
was careful.
He goes,
Yep. In the Frank Aldana fashion. Exactly.
so he tells the story over and over. He never even got dirty. And everything was clean. Then like laid out like it was surgery.
Yeah.
Weirdo.
Yeah. At that same time, when I met Frank Aldana, the same friend that introduced me to Steve Pluger introduced me to Frank, because my Woody car needed some work, and you weren't going to get Pluger to work on a front engine dragster.
Okay.
But at one point, so he goes, "Hey, there's a guy down the way on Collins in Maine and Orange. His name's Frank
that's
Aldana."
right down the
Yep.
street. He's saying, yeah,
okay,
right
so
down the
I
street.
worked at TMR.
Oh, okay.
And the friend was George Spillers, who put the connection to
Right.
Aldana and Pluger. They were all funny
So
car
at that
guys.
point, did Pluger have that Mustang down there that he built like a funny car? It's like the late 60s. And then he had a
yes.
T-Bird that was really
It was
nasty,
the Soapy
too.
Sales. I can't think of the guy's his real name. Soapy Sales. Yes, the Thunderbird.
Yeah.
And then the real Mustang. He
The
built
white
that.
Mustang.
Yeah, he built that for a local Snap-on
yeah,
guy. And
the
that
guy
car
lived
still,
like down.
Yeah, Eddie
in the
Macias
same-
was his name.
The
Yep.
same complex. The guy who was living there.
Yep.
You
And,
walk in, he's got this bad mother.
that car's still running in Nostalgia Eliminator in the Heritage Series. I think it's in Fresno or something. And it's still a beautiful Mustang.
Beautiful car.
Like a 70, something like that?
yeah, but it's not like a funny car. No,
Like
60.
60s, like was it the
68.
Coupe? The early
Okay.
version?
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's a funny car.
True
Okay,
to
yeah,
form.
yeah.
It
So
is
it's
a
all,
great, funny,
stretched and
Beautiful car.
funny car.
Beautiful car.
And so that's how I met Steve. Worked with Steve Pluger
That's cool.
and Frank Aldana, and those two guys were instrumental in launching me into where we
Awesome.
are today.
Okay, very cool.
Very, very. Anytime out.
And you
Pluger-
were 20 years old.
Yeah, I was
Wow.
I was in heaven, and
Yeah.
I worked at TMR, the Earl's dealer. They sold all the red and blue anodized fittings, and Dale Armstrong used to come in all the time.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
just the who's who of drag racing.
Sure.
Yeah.
First time I got to meet Guido Dean Antonelli, Ron Capps' crew chief,
Right.
was when he was working for Force, and all the Force cars were in Yorba Linda. So
Okay.
I got to meet a lot of cool people there.
Yeah.
And that's, you said Daigles, and I always remember all the invoices and
Yeah.
pulling parts.
Yeah.
I was the kid in the back.
Yeah, that's
okay.
that's trippy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have
Wow.
worked there for free, sweeping the floor, but
And that's how you start. You have to pay your dues, right?
yeah, guys were
exactly.
5 deep at the rope
Sure.
just to sweep the floor for
just to
free.
sweep the floor for free.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
And,
And that's important because you start from the bottom and you work your way up and you prove yourself.
You know the
And
inner workings
because
of
they know you know or you should know that they're going to work you hard and they're going to abuse you a little bit to see if you can take it.
Yeah.
And if you can take it, then you start to build a little bit of cred.
And that's where your nickname comes in.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. And they're going to give
exactly.
you a nickname, and it's going to be nasty, but it's okay.
Yeah, you see your work ethic. And
Yeah.
so after working on
That's
the car,
not right. I should show up in my child.
I wanna be president.
Well,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, that's sometimes the attitude. But for the good people, they understand it. They know that they've got to.
Let alone
they
in the
got to pay
racing
their dues.
community.
You got to pay
You're
your
not
dues.
just walking in off the
And-
street without any credit.
and that's the start of it. My dad being a shop teacher, he was a hot rodder. He always would say, we're not going to go out and buy something new. We're going to go get this, barn find.
Mm-hmm.
And of all the cool cars my dad ever had, it was a 67 Nova, which was my favorite, and the SS, and then the Camaro, and then the 56 Ford with the big window. All the cool cars. And,
Sure.
You fixed them up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my drag racing was pretty much the same. I couldn't afford to have Steve build me a car at the time.
Right.
But when Steve would lay pipe out and I got to see several cars built, you paid attention.
Sure.
And you asked questions.
Yep.
And he would talk. And I was a marketing major in college, and I wish I would have studied more engineering, but I did not get my base level of engineering. And now I literally got a crash test.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Crash course.
Yeah, crash
Yeah,
course
crash
in it
course
because
with,
you have to learn every day.
Steve Pluger, it was cool.
And it's applied mechanical engineering. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'd like to thank our sponsor ARP and ARP-bolts.com. And we all three build cars. We all work on
Yeah.
this stuff. And
I tinker.
You tinker.
I tinker.
Yes, we all build.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of a really cool multiple purpose fastener for me because there's all the science and all the technology, which is bottomless. Trust me. Unbelievable amount of research that they put into these things.
Absolutely.
And on top of it, you get them out of the package, and they're absolutely beautiful. Which I've joked before, it's like jewelry for your car. And
They're
when
pre-oiled.
we're building when we're building a high end car, there isn't anything else going on it. It's part of the criteria for me to have them lining the engine bay, not just on the engine, everywhere.
Right.
So you get all the strength, the durability, the reliability, and fantastic good looks.
Sure.
Kind of like Jeff here.
And without peer. Without peer.
With,
Anybody
and
else
you
got-
know what?
Or pairs.
Without peer, there's nobody else
Correct.
that does
That
what they
is,
do.
it is. So check them out at arp-bolts.com, and they can help you out.
Yeah. So we had a lot of fun doing that, and the nostalgia thing was launched, and then Steve and those guys went off and did the nostalgia funny car. So I started building my own, and I started. It was the Hot for Teacher Mustang, and it was one of the same molds that the Pluger and Geiger were.
Okay.
The one of those bodies in white is hanging in my shop.
Oh, nice! It was that one that Aldana had.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got it. I came and took it and said it's going to go somewhere safe.
Yep.
So I hung it up on the wall. We made a whole wood inner structure for it to support it, and then
Perfect. Yeah, because those were really, really light. They laid them
Yeah.
up.
So they move around a lot.
They move
yeah.
around,
You just hang
yeah.
them, they just crack.
Mine's
right?
in Weymouth, Massachusetts, and now it's
Really?
Die Hard.
Really?
Excuse me, Die Broke by Dana Hard.
Okay.
He owns a car, and I feel pretty dumb the first lap on the car. He goes out and runs a 575, 200 and something miles an hour. I'm like, I barely knocked on a 589 on a good day with a tailwind and stuff. And here's Dana running. It was cool. So it was a tribute car to Steve Pluger because I built that as an ode to him. I was never going to go in the chassis business. I like building chassis because I got to see Steve do it for all those years.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And,
yeah. If you pay attention, you learn. Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool.
do it like this.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Just
And
watch what I do, damn it.
he'd set the Siggy down and go to town.
Yeah.
Then that brings us to present day.
Okay.
The nostalgia thing, I had a really good time with. They were trying to. It was going in a different direction to where they were trying to unionize, and I'm like, hey guys, if we had a different story to tell, if we were selling more tickets like the monster truck guys. I just went to the monster truck show at Anaheim Stadium, and it was packed. I go, we got to start doing this. And they're like, Alex, yeah, you don't get it. And I'm like, okay, you're right, I don't. And I put the Mustang up for sale, and I started building the big car.
Okay.
And
For the big show.
for the big show,
For
and
the-
everyone checked my temperature. Densham did this. Are you okay, son? Yeah.
Do you know what you're getting into yourself into?
Leahy gave me a 15-minute lecture on how dumb it was, and he was right. and then Pluger goes, I didn't know you wanted to drive. Oh, okay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it.
Yeah, again, it was like our Starstruck thing we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So built the car, and I did it, again, in Steve Pluger fashion to all the modern NHRA specs. And again, it's just time and materials. It's something I like doing. I do in a 2-car garage in Orange, California, and I set the garage up. I got my chassis jig, and I actually, on the cars, we started number them because when Steve and NHRA started making them number the chassis, I started where he ended. So he ended with 127, and that car was the Warhorse.
Yeah, Warhorse.
And we started our next series with 128.
128.
Yeah, and we're
Yeah,
starting
that's
on
cool.
129 right now.
Yeah.
Just, again, I learned so much from them.
Sure.
And everyone that was, I don't know if you want to call them my alum, that worked on that car. It's cool. You see him at the track, and we all kind of have a connection. It was
Sure.
a class of 2010 in funny car.
Sure.
And that's where it started. And I love doing it. And I wanted to keep it true to old school fashion. Yes, it takes millions of dollars to do it, but I figure, you know what? Everyone said I needed to get my head checked, so I go, let's do it, but let's just do it different. Everyone knows I'm a huge drag race fan. We set the car up so I don't have to do anything at the track. Okay. We work on it, and I got, again, like Pluger fashion, I got 15 people that work on the car. Everyone says, God, you got a big team. And I'm like, well, we're a bunch of hillbillies, man. we're slow part-timers.
Yeah.
So my father-in-law, all my good friends, and my nostalgia car friends, I got the guys from the Warhorse, and I got some of John Hale's guys and some of my crew. And here we are. And they all kind of help out where I can't, fill the gaps. So I just stand at the edge of the trailer all day and say, hi, I'm Alex. Thanks for coming out. Because when we qualified for that first Pomona, Kevin, our crew chief, was doing his thing. And I said, hey, are we done? And he goes, yeah, we're good. Go ahead and do what you got to do. And I go, there's people at the edge of the trailer. And I'm like at my first Pomona. It's like, oh, my God, this is wild.
Yeah.
So I just stood out there and shook people's hands and said, hi, I'm Alex. Thanks for coming. And that's where
That's so cool.
everything was started. And then the whole
And what year was that?
That was 2019.
19.
That was
so
my first year.
Okay.
in
Okay.
And the big leagues, as they call
Yeah.
it. To me, it's
Yeah.
just racing at Pomona, racing in NHRA. And I called the car Hot for Teacher because my wife was a teacher. And
Okay.
I'm a huge music fan.
Uh-huh.
That also helped us sell shirts to, my friend's a teacher, my wife's a teacher, and the music fans out there
Okay.
in the world.
Okay. Cool.
And that's helped out a lot.
Okay, good. So it helps with the sponsorship then because
yeah.
because there's no big dollars coming in to fund this whole thing.
There's always beer money at the end from T-shirt sales. If I can get a Hot Wheels, and Jim Dunn told me, he goes, "Hey kids, save your Pistons, you sign them and sell them for $20
exactly.
a piece."
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
So a typical
Merchandising.
run, how much stuff do you tear up?
we've been good.
Been lucky?
Our crew chief got a handle on it. Again, he's raced with Austin Coyle, John Medlin, and the
Okay.
best.
Yeah.
He's ran cars for Doug Herbert, Dexter Tuttle, and he was crew chief on the first car, or dragster, and I could be wrong that J.R. Todd drove.
Okay.
So Kevin knows what he's doing, and we don't murder parts.
And he's not setting it up to kill because
Exactly.
that's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, because he goes, "Hey kid, you better hold on." And I said, "Yeah, okay." I go, "Hey, remember, if we damage it, we can't play on Sunday."
Right.
And we've been doing a lot of dirt track driving school with Wally Pankratz at Ventura Raceway.
Really?
Here. And
You know Biggie? You know Steve Watt?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And doing
Well,
It's
again, we're all
why don't we
friends.
know more
Yeah.
people of the same?
Yeah, it's Southern California. You don't lose your girlfriend, you just lose your turn. So,
Ooh, yikes.
that's what I used to-
So again, because
Took a
I
dark
know
turn
who
there for a
Stevie
minute.
Watt is. Stevie's is the crew chief for the Speed Demon.
That's right.
The-
but he
but
did a
before
whole ton of
that,
sprint car stuff here.
sprint
in
car
Ventura.
stuff and Maxwell Industries. So
That's right.
And doing shock dynos too. So
Yeah.
and a magician to make a set of headers. And his stuff looks like jewelry. It's amazing.
I'm still working on that craft. On
Yeah,
headers.
yeah. Hey, we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP-bolts.com. We got a fantastic little backdrop here. They make an outstanding series of bolts, almost anything you would need for engines, chassis, things like that. In fact, we were at lunch today, and a guy asked you about the bolt on the back of your shirt, and and I said, well, it's really about a head bolt. They neck the stem down of the bolt on a small block Chevy head bolt, so the clamp load is even across 3 different head bolt lengths on a small block Chevy. And so that's the kind of technology that you get out of ARP, and we've all got stories on all that stuff.
For a translation of what he said, call arpbolts.com.
but the message is that you can't get any better than that.
No, you
So
cannot.
There you go.
Nope.
Excellent.
And then just check them out at arp-bolts.com. We'd like to thank our friends at InTheGarageMedia.com. They have 3 fantastic magazines. They've got Classic Truck Performance, they have Modern Rotting, and my favorite, All Chevy Performance with Nick, my buddy Nick,
Oh,
is
you're
the
so
editor.
biased.
So
Correct.
yes, of course.
Yes.
But they're doing print media, which
Yes.
is of course our favorite. So
Tangible
color and
magazine.
everything.
in color and everything, and you can get your car on the cover of one of those books, which is
Right.
a fun
that's a
deal.
lot.
Great
Yeah.
tech.
Great
Written
tech.
by you
know,
and others
not always
that are
written by me, but yeah.
famous people.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
always written by me.
That's right.
Just
So
pick it
check
up and
them
read
out
it.
at InTheGarageMedia.com, and they're our friends, and they will thank you. How much fuel you go through on a weekend?
If you imagine, okay, the new NHRA Nitro drums are 44 gallons because of Homeland Security, and
Okay.
that's what it was used in a bomb, so whatever.
Right.
So we go through
Because
one.
it's a controlled substance.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, Homeland
nitromethane.
Security.
Nitromethane is a controlled substance.
Yeah,
now.
we had to fill out all the forms and
they had to do security checks on you to make sure
Oh,
you
yeah,
weren't
they
a
wanna see
terrorist
them
and everything
locked
else.
up.
Yeah.
Who do you buy it from?
we have to get it from the VP at the racetrack.
Oh, they
track.
Yeah. When we test, they do check your dirty underwear. And
I'm not going to say anything.
one of the big teams got fined and got in a lot of trouble, and I don't need any bad
Yeah,
press
I know.
right now. I got to play by the rules.
I'm not going to say nothing about.
Plus, if NHRA when NHRA sees this,
Sees
the
this,
brass,
right? Yeah.
From different
It's-
sources.
We all want to play nice, but
So-
and that's not cheap, right?
Oh,
How
yeah,
much
right
is fuel
now
now?
it's
How much is fuel?
$1,600 a drum.
Oh, did it go up?
$1,600.
And I got blamed because they said, guys, you
got
got to
blamed.
understand the cost of shipping a container of nitro is $20,000. to bring a container from China. Why work on shipping equipment? And we're having a meeting with NHRA, and everyone's looking at me, and I'm just like, like I'm not taking the blame
So your
for
day
this.
job is?
I'm a mechanic on shipping equipment.
Shipping equipment.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you
anything,
work out of Long Beach then?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
and we'll use 1 drum a day. So for 2 runs.
So one day, and you'll go through a 44-gallon drum.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. How many passes?
2.
2 passes.
Yeah.
Oh
so
my God.
if you imagine that's an idle, you'll
That's what I
use,
told you when I was sponsoring. I was buying Nitro. I watched my money burn
yes, exactly.
you watch your money
in
turn into
in
flames.
copious amounts.
Mounts. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it'd be like me just taking a bucket of money
And
and
just-
pouring it into a pile of fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Look
done.
at that. Wow, that was fun. Let's do that again.
Exactly.
Wow. So essentially 22 gallons a pass.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Man.
On YouTube, there's a great video of a 1-cylinder model, and I think Sid Waterman set it up for
Okay.
the NHRA Museum.
Because he's
was
a
at
fuel
the
pump
museum.
manufacturer.
Yeah, it was at,
Yeah.
It was
and
at the
you look
NHRA
it up,
museum.
go to the NHRA
It's
Museum.
a fire hose.
Yes.
Sure. Oh
8,
yeah.
8 gallons at idle.
So because we can do a little bit of stuff here. Gasoline 14.7 to 1 air fuel ratio. You basically go 12.5 to 1 to make maximum power because you make it rich. That way you make sure and burn up all the oxygen in the cylinder. Nitromethane is an oxygen-bearing fuel. So essentially, for all intents and purposes, the air fuel ratio is 1 to 1.
Yep.
Now, I did a story for CarCraft many years ago on nitromethane, and I talked with some racers and stuff, and essentially they told me, like, the more fuel you can get in the chamber,
Yes.
the more power you can make.
Oh, yeah, it's never enough.
Yeah, because it's essentially the more fuel you put in there, the more power you make because it's a 1 to 1 air fuel ratio.
That's why you got that big air pump on the top.
Yeah,
supercharger.
exactly. A big supercharger. Yeah.
Shoving it
So the deal is, it's like you're on the ragged edge of hydraulicking the cylinder.
Yes.
And I've heard, this is what I was told, that that the timing is roughly around 53 degrees. Because, and the reason you take that additional time, I thought it was because nitro burns slower. And I was told, no, it's because 2/3 of the fuel in the chamber is liquid.
Yes.
And you have to start it that early because you got to take it from a liquid, because liquid won't burn. It has to turn from a liquid to a vapor.
Yep.
So that's why you need the extra timing.
Exactly. And the
This is so
ARP
cool.
studs to keep the cylinder heads
to keep the
bolted
cylinder head on
Yep.
the block, right? Because it wants to
it's-
go.
The more that I learned, the more I become more respectful of it. Because you got to remember, this was a burst of macho that was gone horribly wrong. What I really needed was 20-year-old Alex. Because the more I learned, I'm like, wow, I can't.
I'm going to die.
This is dangerous.
Yeah, it's very
I didn't even think about that.
And 2 mags
Yep.
that are putting out, I don't have any idea. They used to be 44 amps.
Yeah, they're still 44
Still 40 amps?
and,
Okay. Which is 44. I think about, what, a half an amp will kill you?
millivolts.
A
We'll give you
milliamp.
AFib.
A
Yeah,
milliamp will
milliamp
kill you.
give AFib.
Voltage doesn't kill you. It's the amperage.
Yep.
So those things are what you want to stay away from.
Yeah,
Because
you
those
don't
things will
touch
fry
those.
you.
Yeah, it's
Ooh.
pretty intimidating.
It's
And then-
awesome when it distorts the TV cameras.
Yes.
The guy's filming it goes
know,
when
it's
they
like-
do the burnouts. Like,
Yeah,
all right,
because
there's a pretty good
that's-
sign that
Does the
something's
same thing to your
very
vision.
deadly.
There's some serious energy going on here.
Yep. And you start one mag sooner than the other, so
Uh-huh.
it's a longer burn.
Right,
And
right.
then the rest is done. You'll put some resistance on the motor or keep the motor's head down with clutch and supercharger.
Okay.
So that also helps the burn. We got John Force blowers. They're amazing, and they put out a ton of air. So you'll get fit in excess of 50 pounds at the step of the throttle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 58 gallons of fuel at the step. Now, mind you, this is how crazy it is. We're shoving this thing in there like it's a beer bong at a kegger. And the crew chiefs are measuring the fuel in cc's per turn. So
Wow.
that's cubic centimeters
Cubic centimeters per revolution
per revolution of the engine.
of the engine.
Yeah, and then there's
Wow.
all these other graphs and charts and words that I don't even know.
Okay.
It's the magical
Okay.
mystery machine.
Yeah.
And,
you know what would be fun would be we could turn this into a tech thing.
No,
get
we've
one of those guys
already
in-
have turned this into a
okay.
tech.
But anyway, because it's so
Hope everyone's got
interesting.
their
Because
pencils.
it's
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Because literally, you're fire hosing fuel into cylinders
Yeah.
in cc's per revolution.
Yes.
Measuring it that finely.
That's how crazy it is.
Because,
Again,
because if you go too much in hydraulics, you go too little, you just are losing power.
yep, you're
Yeah.
not burning enough
Yeah.
fuel.
Yeah.
And getting down the
Oh,
it's
man.
crazy. That
It's
computer,
wild.
you know, John Force used to always say, you know, coil this, coil that, can measure everything. I'd like to see it pedal a hot rod.
Mm-hmm.
That computer measures everything. And also the cool thing is now all the safety is integrated into the box, into the timing box. So if you do start to murder a piston, it measures your crankcase pressure. So if your crankcase pressure goes
okay.
above 8 pounds,
Then they know that you're losing a cylinder.
yes, and it
then
shuts it off, and in
Okay.
turn oiling down the racetrack,
Yeah, right.
and then wasting valuable track time.
Right, right.
So-
and plus, don't they fine you if you oil the track down?
Yeah, and I
right?
can't afford
No,
NHRA
you don't want to do
fines. Oh,
that.
dear.
Yeah, you don't want to do
Yep.
that.
So we start it. They start that about 8 pounds, and it'll just start to get the ring. And you're lucky because, you know, I'm on a budget. It doesn't murder the cylinder head.
Okay.
Because you'll start to get the exhaust seat at the
Right.
same time.
Because what happens is if it gets hot enough, aluminum just becomes a fuel.
Yep.
and it
Oh,
starts
exactly.
eating it.
Yeah. Coil.
and that's nasty.
Yeah. It runs to a nitro and half track and aluminum to the finish line. So
That's great.
that's so all the safeties go in there. They change the ignition timing because you got to imagine when they took the racetrack from 1,000 feet, or quarter mile to 1,000
down
feet.
to 1,000.
Guys like Alan Johnson are like, "Oh, I got this." Well, they get the car moving and they just rip the timing into it in essentially 2.3 seconds. They just jack the timing right into it, and boom, you got an Alan Johnson, time slip.
Right.
So NHRA says, no, you can't do that. So they started the MSD boxes have to be certified, and through them.
Really?
Yeah.
And so they established the curve then, essentially?
It's not so much the curve; it's what you can do in time.
Oh, okay.
So you talked about
you only
getting,
allowed a certain amount
exactly.
of timing
So at
per
the
time.
step of the throttle, you'll get the car moving with between 52 to some guys will be a little more on the aggressive side to 58. But it's what you jack into it in the map.
Okay.
And this is the same thing that the guys do in sport compact street cars where you can play with your
turbochargers.
yeah,
and
your
stuff.
timing
Yeah.
curve.
Yeah, yeah.
So MSD allows you to do that with NHRA's blessing, but it's the rip of getting your timing.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know
Yeah,
that they
you
regulated
can't
how
be more than, I
quickly you
wanna
can
say-
bring it in.
I can't be more than 10 degrees within the first 3 seconds.
Okay.
But you can kiss it on degree increments. And then the rev limiter,
Yeah, now you're limited to, how much is it?
8,500 RPMs.
8,500.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are they estimating power at? Just
They're saying
they're
now
all over the place, I know, but
11,000
about 8,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 1,000 horsepower per cylinder.
per cylinder.
Yeah. Think about that.
Yep. Then the cool thing for all like the garage guys that measure camshafts when they're ordering their torque converters or cylinder head combinations, if you imagine the volumetric efficiency, and that's the only big word I'm going to use tonight, on a Chrysler Hemi is from 7,500 to about 79. So that's for that camshaft on that design, the V8. That's where it needs to be.
Okay.
But a lot of these crew chiefs, they like to run them like a two-stroke, and they'll have them straight up to 8,200 RPMs, and they just start clamping the clutch to it. It's amazing. And
Because there's a ton of variables, because we haven't even talked about the clutch yet.
Oh,
'Cause that's a big part of it,
yeah,
right?
my mind's blown. Like, I need a nap after all this.
And this all started because way back, this is when I was working for the magazines during the 80s, and it was Dale Armstrong that figured out that they thought they were applying, they were locking the clutch down, and they assumed the clutch wasn't spinning, and they'd run into a wall at, I forget what the mile an hour was, and nobody was running any faster than that because the clutches were all slipping, and they were assuming that they were locked. And I think it was Armstrong that figured it out, and then started hydraulically locking the clutch at a certain point, and with Bernstein's car, and was killing everybody.
Yep.
And that was, and so now that whole technology is, I have no idea.
Now we
how that
brought in the
works.
clutch controller. Yes.
Right. So now you do it electronically.
Yes. So it's an electric over hydraulic system.
Right.
So if you're to imagine a manifold off anything modern that's got electric solenoids and the same safety box I was talking about made by Electromotion, is you plug in your clutch map. So the Dale Armstrong cannon that AFT came up with, they worked on it together, in Orange, California, when you're right down the street from Daigle's.
That's right.
So they essentially, if you imagine a porta power or a hydraulic ram out, stopping all the clutch levers from locking up the clutch to the flywheel.
Right.
The ram, or they call it the snoozle, technical term.
Really?
Yeah, they call it the
That's what it's
snoozle.
called?
I don't
That's
know the
funny.
story.
That's funny.
The ram keeps all the levers from coming out, and it is hydraulically allowed to retract.
And that allows the lever out, and each time the lever pivots this way, it pushes the clutch disc, or it clamps the clutch discs down.
The lever angle. Right. And Cruz Petragon has some cool videos on YouTube of how a clutch works, and it's just like a motorcycle centrifugal clutch.
Exactly.
That you let your kids ride.
Yeah.
So from there, it's programmed with a map, and that is not controlled by NHRA. It's your map, because you're just trying to get your car down the track.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it's how you want to lock it up in stages.
Yes.
From the minute you roll back, you've done your burnout, you roll back, it's the crew chief and the clutch guy to decide how well the track is biting or not, and how much power you're going to allow to hit the tires or to slip by, and how fast it's going to start grabbing more and more clutch and allowing full throttle. It's a staging game to a point of staging the clutch. How much is allowed in to oversimplify?
And that's really immensely complex.
Oh, exactly. And my favorite line from Jimmy Prock was, "Well, we're racing the track, not the guy in the other lane."
Exactly.
Yep.
Oh,
You got to remember the time slips for the team. The reaction time's the driver, and the time slip is what gets you.
What the car did.
And that gets you down there. So that's all done. So it's an electric manifold or a hydraulic manifold that's electronically controlled, and it's in stages.
Wow.
And that's the magic of a Top Fuel car. And
Right.
I don't know, that could be like the next show as you get into the box, and all of them are the same. And NHRA only allows certain versions of it, because with the cars going so fast, if you imagine the innovation that you had in the late 60s through the 90s, that's gone because the safety of it. And track time and Pomona.
Because originally they were having clutch explosions because they were driving through the clutches.
Oh,
and
they just
turning
saw
them into
through
molten metal and just saw through everything. And,
Melanie Troxel's clutch locked up when she had the in-and-out car, and it just literally drove. She went through the turnoff, and she was essentially a passenger because the car was running on motor oil, and the clutch
it was dieseling.
It was and it was welded.
Plugs had already been melted away,
and
the heat in the head is the
Still
heat.
firing
The heat in the engine is firing the
It's
fuel
auto detating
because that's it. And again, you'll know this obviously, but a lot of people don't know that in a fuel car, funny or dragster, that the spark plugs are gone.
Pretty much
half
toast.
track. Half track. And the car is dieseling the rest of the way down. Dieseling
is auto detonation. It's lighting it off because the heat in the chamber, as soon as you pull the fuel in, it just lights off.
Exactly. And nitromethane will combust in the air of, I want to say the number is 400 degrees.
Which is ridiculously low.
Yes. So
it lights really easily, essentially, is what we're saying.
Exactly, when we get it. You could, if we poured some on the table here and put a cigarette lighter and tried to light it, it wouldn't go. If you hit it with a hammer, this whole table would be looking like an IED. It'd be blown to smithereens.
Right,
So the other thing that they monitor is the intake manifold temperature. And with the amount of fuel going through there, and I don't know if this is true, but it's a cool term that I've heard, is the air inside the supercharger manifold on a car with a 1471, that the air is supersonic.
It's probably pretty close.
And with all the fuel going in there that's coming from the top of the injector supercharger, the intake manifold is in excess, the temperature of, I want to say 120 to 130 degrees.
Which is really low.
Yeah, so if
considering how hard you're squeezing the air.
Yes. And for all your diesel fans and watchers out there, they know they run the turbocharger air through an intercooler across the manifold to cool it before it goes into the motor.
Right.
So essentially,
you don't have that. Nope. Essentially, you do. It's the fuel that cools.
Yeah, we're doing it with nitromethane.
Right. Exactly.
And that keeps the supercharger sealed and the intake charge cool. So that temperature, and Austin Coyle called up the guy who started the crazy fuel system stuff, and he goes, well, as soon as it hits 135, that's when it all goes to hell in a handbag.
Right.
Wow.
So what is moving forward? Because as always, we move through these hours like that.
Yes,
So
it's
before we
moving
get
fast.
before we get too close to the end, what is one? How do people learn or become fans? You have a website that. You know,
Yeah, we have
Hey,
a-
I drivefunnycar.com.
Exactly.
or-
Come see me. Yeah, hotforteacherracing.com.
Excellent.
That's where you can find us. Follow
Okay.
the race schedules, NHRA.com.
Can they get merch?
They can get merchandise.
Yay.
And also, one of my big sponsors is redshirtfriday.com.
Okay.
We always wear
That would be that.
red shirts on Friday.
Red Shirt Friday.
And Coach Holman, my friend from high school, is my friend who made it. And
What is Red Shirt?
so
Friday?
Red Shirt Friday is we respect everyone deployed. So all of our
That's
sons
I
and
like
daughters that are deployed,
Excellent, excellent.
we just wear red
That's
to let
really
them know
cool.
we love them.
How do I not know about this?
Yeah, it's the first time I've
How's
heard
it-
about it,
how
too.
That's
has
my job.
Nobody told me
come
about
from a
this.
military family.
Okay, so do
Both
I, and-
I dig that.
My brother and my dad were Marines.
Okay.
And my nephew was Marine.
Yeah.
And so I come from a military family. That's very
I
cool.
thank all of them for their
Excellent.
service, and so our team, and we're trying to pass the good word and get everyone to wear red on Friday. Doesn't
Okay.
have to be one of our shirts. The proceeds from the website go to all local veterans programs.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
Oh, very cool.
That's
And
cool.
Active
Yeah.
Valor is a local one, and Pause for Heroes. And what it does is it gets dogs trained to help soldiers with PTSD
Yeah,
or
yeah.
service dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Active Valor is another local veterans charity that helps out.
Oh, that's really
my sister
cool.
has a organization called Wounded Warrior Homes.
Okay.
It's not involved. It's not affiliated with Wounded Warriors, and she does that. They have, I think, her and her husband now are up to 3 houses that they've built.
That's awesome.
And they transition these guys from the military into
Civilian.
life, and it's an outstanding organization. She does a really great job.
Yeah, it's great. I got 3 veterans on the team. My father-in-law and Vinny and Kevin were all Marines. And it's just something good. It's a community thing. And if you look on the website, we got pictures of the car. I got all the branches of the Marine on the escape hatch.
Yeah?
Of
Cool.
the service on the escape hatch.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of been a community thing that we've done. And again,
Yeah.
it's a 401c charity, and Coach pays all the bills. And the charity is just something he wanted to promote. So
Very cool,
you
very
could
cool.
wear just any red shirt. You get your Hot Rod, your Edelbrock T-shirt, or
Yeah.
anything you got. And,
Yeah.
and just always think of veteran. Leave the politics out of it, or whether you,
Yeah.
but
No, it doesn't
just
matter. It's
Sons,
not important.
daughters, brothers,
Yeah.
and sisters.
Yeah.
We support and love you guys, and so
Outstanding.
work on that charity. And then my wife's a teacher, and all my mom and my dad were teachers, so it was
Yeah.
always just
So
stay in
my
school.
mom and my sister were both teachers too. In grade school stuff? She's a
Uh,
grade
my-
school teacher?
my-
My sister was a teacher.
My mom taught at the junior college.
Okay.
She taught at like a sewing at Fullerton College.
Okay.
She taught a
Okay.
sewing program, or like advanced fashion design.
Okay.
And then my dad taught auto shop, and it was kind of cool. I probably try and say this without tearing up. Is auto shop was a class that the average kid could go in and do good.
That was me.
And
That was me.
It wasn't the brainiac, or it was someone that the regular kid could go in and do it, or the gear jammer.
Yes, yeah.
And a lot of people through life, when they hear the name Miladinovich, they'll be like, I had a teacher. And I go, that's my dad. And they'd say, hey, I was going to drop out, but your dad always said, hey, stay in
Very
school.
cool.
It's the only thing that you get, that you own when
Right.
you leave here, and it's
Right.
free.
Yeah.
So that was cool. It always means a lot. So
Sure.
Trying to work with local school programs.
Mm-hmm.
Every fall we do backpack giveaways at the racetrack.
Really?
Where Ellen and Lennon buys us these cool backpacks, and we get them embroidered, hot for teacher, and we'll throw them over the fences and give them to the kids.
Cool.
And just kind of trying to make NHRA our old school community. Like we were talking about, within 5 minutes we know all the same people.
Yeah.
Through racing.
Sure.
Sure.
And
all the same offenders.
Yes, exactly. And we don't have enough time for your show to even bring Frank Aldana on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. We'll bring him on.
No, we should. We should.
We should
Absolutely.
bring
He's a
Frank
talker.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
And he has so much history.
And he was there from the beginning of Fuel Altereds. And so
Yeah.
bringing that community back to racing, to where when the NHRA posted, when we went to Indiana last year, and we raced at the 2 Indies at the restart of COVID, when all that went away. Some people from the Illinois Yugoslavian Church came down from Chicago. They drove down and came to Indy, and they brought me
Really?
got beer shirts. So
That's
thank
great.
you everyone in the Yugoslavian community in Illinois.
That's
and
cool.
I'm just trying to bring that back, because I don't have to answer to corporate sponsors.
Corporate anybody.
Sure.
At some point, I'll
Right.
you know, I don't go blue, as the comedians say. I keep it clean.
Yeah.
Again, Marcy's still teaching in the school district,
Yeah.
so it's not anything dirty. But you know, I made the mistake at Sonoma. I said, when we're done qualifying, why don't everyone come over and have shots in our pits when we're done? And I realized that was a big mistake. That was a big no-no. Because everyone came over with one hitters, and they were 10 deep. I didn't realize how many partiers there were. And
That was, you should have known better. But
I know.
Really?
It was another round. It was cool because on that
It sounded good at the time, though, didn't it?
Exactly. I just raced John Force in qualifying, my first time ever.
Oh, cool.
oof.
I'm pulling up. I'm like, hey,
Ay,
who's
ay,
the
ay.
idiot Force is going to run? Well, it's me.
Yay.
And my brakes failed. The chutes didn't open.
Oh, no.
And
Oh,
then
no.
I went almost 300 in our
Good
car.
day.
Yes,
Wow.
everything was right. And came
Doing
around the
good.
bend. No, the brakes were locking up. Something in the carbon fiber brakes.
Going down the track or
Yeah,
at the
at the finish line.
big
When-
end?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when they create friction, they're more efficient for all the, again, the hot rodders
Because you got to get them up to a certain temperature before they really work
before
well.
they
Yeah.
really work.
Yeah.
And that's why if you're staging and they pull through, sometimes they
Right, it
didn't
happens.
get hot
Yeah.
enough. So the brakes were rubbing, and what had happened is we had a new brake assembly on there, and it just
Like
happened.
Lamb,
I'm not.
who's brakes?
They were
used?
strange.
Strange?
And I'm not saying they had
No,
a
I know you're
problem.
not talking
it was,
shit. I
It
know.
was what it was.
Yeah.
But the caliper floats on it because it's got one cylinder, cylinder, and it floats on there. Well, it was locking up during the run.
Oh.
So it's creating heat. The chutes didn't open, and I passed the first turnout, just went, whoa! And I go,
And you
I'm
said,
like,
damn it.
now I'm going in the sand, and I'm going
Damn
to
it.
get my tail chewed.
Yeah.
So I tap the brakes, they lock up, I flat the tires,
Oh,
and I
boy,
come
yeah.
around the finish line, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have an interview with Force. I think this is gonna be cool. And my tires are like going blah 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 blah.
You're awesome.
I'm like, here come the Orange County hillbillies with flat tires.
Hi, did I miss something?
Hey guys, luckily the only thing that saved my self-esteem for the weekend was the Goodyear tires that had their tire thing at the finish line. Well, at Pomona and some of the other tracks, it's in the back 40. So we're doing tire changes with a crescent wrench and channel locks.
Yeah.
And we even started keeping a floor jack in the thing in case that happens. But it was cool. It was a huge learning curve.
Yeah.
But it's funny now. But it was at the time.
At the time,
it was
yeah,
so
yeah.
frustrating. We had a new
At
sponsor.
least you didn't hurt the car, though. You didn't hurt the car.
Oh,
That's
exactly.
good.
Yeah, the
That's
car
good.
kept
And
us
you
safe.
didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You always.
So what's the fastest you've been?
So on that run, it was 421, 299 miles an hour.
299.
And a car I built in my garage.
Yeah, how about that? Let that sink in for
Every
a
time
moment.
he says it, I think of the surfers.
Yeah, that was my whole plan. And
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Those dudes were so cool. And you guys that don't know what I'm talking about, just Google
Google the surfers.
the old school
Because this
top
was
fuel
60s top fuel
dragster, the
team.
surfers.
Yep.
There were four guys that built this rail job in their garage. And so, in fact, a lot of people,
392
a
Hemi?
lot of people in SoCal were building rail
Yes,
jobs in their
yes,
garage
yes.
though back then. But
Yeah.
they would go out and they swung a big bat. They won a lot. And they were not, well, no one was corporate really, but they were just four dudes building a really fast rail,
Which
was really cool.
really exemplifies exactly what you guys are doing, because that, back then there were a lot of people doing it. It was almost like a typical deal.
You know, it'd be
your deal
handy-
building a car in your own garage and doing it is like fielding a fighter plane against the United States of America. You build a plane in your garage and flying it against the best stuff in the country. Nobody does that. Nobody does that.
The chassis spec is set out by NHRA. There's 3 or 4 versions that you could do, and we of course do the Pluger style.
Right.
And,
Amen, brother.
We have all the same tools that those guys have. I got the same grinders, the TIG welders. I have the same tools I bought in high school, and that's all it is.
That's
Everything
just
else is a hustling. So for all your viewers that are car guys,
Pretty much all of them, hopefully.
99. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Be open-minded. Car people.
Car people. Yep. It starts in your garage now if their business is successful, and have a warehouse like we're in a facility. You could have your car in the back, but build it in your garage, build it what you want.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to be right. It's not going to be show quality, but it's going to be yours.
It's gonna be
Might
yours.
lock up,
Yeah,
flatten
yeah,
tires,
absolutely.
the chute might not come out.
Exactly it. And,
It's okay.
yep. And so much like, and again, I'm a huge music fan, and they always say like a U2 album, they're never done. They just release them.
Yeah.
Because you always look at something where you paint cars and you've done something. You're like, I'd like to do that. I wish I would have done that, or didn't come out the way I wanted.
Yeah.
But at that point in time in your life, it is what it is.
At some point, you got to let it go.
Yeah, and I
release. Yeah,
all my fuel
yeah.
tanks look like they've been through a garbage disposer. But I hate doing fuel tanks. I'm gonna have my buddy, the quarter pounder guys, build our tanks this round.
Yeah.
But just do it in the garage.
But you were doing it yourself, and that's what
Yep.
it took to get there.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's okay.
And there was 4 idiots that followed me along, and I love them to death. And they're there.
name your crew?
So we got Big Dummy, Rob Markworth.
Okay.
Yeah, Vincent Deglacente. And we got Gary Potikian. He's our Armenian.
Okay.
And Kevin Pointer's the crew chief. My brother Robert does all the motors at his house. So that's like the caveat where we use up about 4 garages.
Okay. Yeah.
Kevin Pointer, crew chief, he takes projects home to his place. Trying to get Marcel's garage to see if we can use some of his real estate. And I got another Vince Urita. He's got a boat shop in Lake Havasu.
Okay.
And his son Taylor, they do the top end.
Okay.
And Conrad Bigelow, not in relation to Deuce.
Okay.
Conrad Bigelow, he another Warhorse guy. He works on the front, and Ron Versteeg and Keith Koss do, like, they handle all the truck maintenance. He's my
Okay.
trucker.
Okay.
And my father-in-law, Don Merritt, does cylinder heads. Tracy Norikowski.
And people don't understand too. I mean, speaking to that, you're a truck driver and your trailer and everything. That regardless, your traveling expenses are almost as expensive as anybody else's. And that's a big deal.
I can't buy diesel with my good looks. You know?
Yeah, and especially with diesel costs today, and all that stuff is fixed. I can remember a friend of mine, Tommy Johnson, had a top fuel car. This was many, many years ago, and I was at Indy, and because he was originally from Iowa, he's from Ottumwa, and so we met, and we used to actually, the buddies and I that I raced in the early 70s, mid 70s, we were racing against Tommy Johnson, and at a time, and back then, and then he eventually went into Top Fuel for a while, and I remember going by his pits at the U.S. Nationals. I don't know what year it was, maybe like, it doesn't matter, and he was telling me, he says, we have to qualify. I said, well, of course. No, you don't understand. We have to qualify so we can drive home.
Yeah, the money.
We have no money left. We have no money. We have to qualify, otherwise we're gonna have to borrow money to get home. And I said, so I started asking questions about how does this all work. And he says, there's only one paid guy in this entire field. Tommy Johnson Jr. was driving the car. His son was driving the car. His crew chief was the only guy that was making any money.
Mike Clubber at the time.
Yeah.
Yep. He's
So it was
awesome.
like, I was stunned because when you're walking through the pro, the pro pits, and these guys are all making money. They got big sponsors, and I said, "So sponsorship money?" Oh, he says, "Oh, that was gone. That was gone 3 months ago.
We drank that up already.
We just got used up trying to buy parts and do it, and this broke and that broke. And we had these problems, and all of a sudden, the money that should have been had been budgeted throughout the entire year so they could run all the races was gone by the halfway season. Well, this is U.S. Nationals. This would be 2/3 of the way through the season, and their money was gone.
Yeah.
And they were racing on because Tommy had a little mail order business.
Yep.
And they were being funded by the speed shop, which is insane,
So I'm trying to start a business. If you guys know of got any business plans or something, I'm shooting from the hip. I got nothing.
Yeah.
So
Heard it here first. What are
Yep.
you trying to do?
I don't know. I watched. What was
That's
that?
a great business plan.
Yep.
in.
Marcy and I were watching the Ozarks, and she's like, "So what's the difference between money laundering and money laundering legal?" And I go, "No, it's pretty much illegal. all the way."
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's already been done. So, we're doing what we can, and the every time we take the car to the racetrack, something good happens. You meet somebody, good, bad, or indifferent, whether you're qualifying, we're there.
Yeah.
And just like a rock band, you got to go out and do shows. You got to play these.
You got to be
these-
out there.
Okay, well,
Smaller gigs.
that's a perfect segue because I know we're going to be wrapping soon, and I wanted to go. How do people come meet you, come watch you run? Is the schedule that you're going to be running posted on your website?
It's on the website. Yep, and NHRA.com.
And where's the next handful of races you're going? What's the
Okay,
next
so
3?
after the crash in February, we were rebuilding. We had a new car. We got new Mustangs. We got away from the Camrys. So we will be at our main goal is to start next year at the Winter Nationals.
At Winter Nationals.
Yes.
Okay, at Pomona.
We will
At
be
Pomona.
there. Yep.
Yeah.
It's going to be in
February.
Pomona.
Pomona.
Don't listen to the
Yeah.
news.
Yep. That was.
Yeah, don't listen to the news.
Don't listen to our
Yeah.
local
reported
news
there is
that
no
doesn't
more
know
That
anything
NHRA at
newspaper
Pomona.
got it
about a
wrong.
race that's been
What a
happening
shock,
since the dawn
you know?
of time.
Yeah. Journalism
Yep,
hit a new
exactly.
low with that one.
Way
I
to
think.
go,
Yeah.
whoever you were.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
So-
job. Good job.
And they call street racing drag racing. That really chaps me.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
drag
That's,
racing is on a track. It's
That's right.
quarter mile or 1,000 feet.
Yep.
But hotforteacherracing.com or all my social media, if you just Google my name.
Which no one can do.
Exactly.
Well, that's flipping
Militant
useless.
of it.
Thanks
I'm
for that.
still learning how to spell it.
We're actually, while we're talking, we're going to
Yeah, we're
scroll
gonna-
it down on screen, and we're going to have a little follow the bouncing ball.
But we're going to need to be up there for a while
Yep.
because it's a lot of vowels, right?
Exactly. All of them.
Yeah, all of them. They're all-
It's every vowel.
Yep.
Everyone.
Yep. So
Outstanding.
if you do Hot for Teacher, that's funny.
That's easier.
How, yeah, funny
Hey, I
car.
suggest you use that more. In the future.
Exactly.
I can spell that.
You know how Google will recommend what people search, and actually the top one is Hot for Teacher's wife. So Marcy, she got more hits than I am. So
No, that's fine.
it's totally
As long as
fine
it
with
gets
me.
So did you ever get any comments? Hopefully, nothing negative legally from the Van Halen camp.
No. All I heard was
Good.
cool stuff from the guys.
Good.
It was pretty much a tribute for them, and you ask a lawyer for doing like a logo, trying to do a copyright type deal.
Yeah.
If you change it just they get legal. It's not intended for music. It's
Obviously
separate.
you're a drag race
Two
team.
completely different
Oh my
venues.
God.
So yeah,
Tables
you can get away with
and,
it. Yeah.
moving.
Yeah.
You're clearly not a band writing another
Yes,
song.
I never had a chance to meet King Eddie, but I'd still like to meet the other guys.
Yeah, well, it might
And,
happen. Yeah, it may happen.
So hotforteacherracing.com, you can find us. And,
Excellent.
And if you're ever in town, everyone goes to Jimmy Shine's shop in Orange to go see one of the hot rod gods.
Yeah.
He worked for Pete
Yeah.
Chapouris and all
Yep.
that.
Worked for Pete.
Most people just come by. I had my first round of Australians this year. So
Okay, excellent.
Yep. Yeah,
Aussies.
yeah, come
Aussies,
by.
they're
They
wonderful.
love car racing, and
Yeah.
we got El Ranchito, great Mexican, down the street. We'll go down and have margaritas. So
It's one-stop shopping. Well, look,
Exactly.
thanks for coming,
I
man.
do
Appreciate
appreciate
it. This
the
was a
time.
lot of fun.
Yep.
Steve,
Awesome.
You want
Just have him over more.
parting words.
No, I'll be over at the track watching him either pinballing somewhere or going hopefully straight down the track.
Outstanding.
Can't wait to who's painting the car? Someone inside your
we're gonna
group?
have we're doing coming up with a design, and Harpoon's gonna draw it out.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
And,
say no more.
We're gonna have Anchor Sign probably do a wrap.
Okay.
Just
Yep.
Yeah.
for the cost.
you're
'cause,
having Harpoon,
that's
pretty cool.
materials.
That's
Oh,
easy.
yeah,
That could
exactly.
be a lot of
awesome
money.
job.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna wrap it, but we are.
The spending money never stops, does it?
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've
It's
given
an
over money a
endless-
long time ago.
A wise move.
Yeah,
Once
exactly.
racing.
You walk into a bar and you pretty much owe everyone money. So that's pretty much how it is. But on this new paint scheme, I'm just going to throw this out there. We're thinking like Dunn and Reef, Candies and Hues.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
We're going to try and go
Yeah.
vintage.
Yes.
There you
Yeah.
go. Very
I
cool.
will.
Very cool.
I will like that very much.
I'm not telling Harpoon what to do. He's just going to take the ball and roll with
Right,
it.
right.
Like
yeah,
most painters.
Yep, exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Well, excellent. Thanks so much
Thanks
for
for
being
having
here.
me on.
Thanks for watching this whole thing. If you like what we're doing, let us know. Click the like bell, do all that, whatever that crazy
something.
stuff is. Thank also to my friends at arp-bolts.com. We couldn't do it without them. And if you like what we're doing, stick with us because we're going to tell you more stories.